Alright, welcome to Education 552, Section BO, Education in the United States. This is for Summer 1, 2014. This is an online class. This is our first session, or first thing that you'll do in the class. And it's the least fun of the things you'll do in the class because it's a lot of me talking about the syllabus and the website and the expectations, but it's also probably the most important. So I'm going to, this session, go through the syllabus first, and then the website, show you the different features of the website, and go into as much detail as I can explaining the different features of both so that you have this lecture as a reference. You can go back to it, and if you have questions, maybe this will be thorough enough to answer them, and then otherwise you can post them to the discussion board and we'll answer them that way. So yeah, this will drag, I promise you that, but it's important. And so let's just jump right in. My name is Tim Patterson. I'm your instructor. My focus is social studies, and for 6 years I was a middle school and high school teacher before going back and working on my PhD, so that's my background. Best way to get in touch with me is my email. There's my Sacred Heart email. I'm pretty quick to respond to questions over email, though if you have broad questions about the course requirements, I encourage you to use the discussion board because I'm imagining your questions will be similar to someone else's questions. So the best way to get in touch with me, since everything we do in this class is online, is through email. I'm also doing office hours on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday afternoons. I live in New Jersey, which means I'm not physically in the office during the summer months, generally speaking. Office hours happen online, which means we conduct them over Skype. So my ID on Skype is Patterson SHU, a creative name. If you are unaware of what Skype is, it's a free software and free program that allows you to do face-to-face chatting online over the internet. So, I have friends who live in Sweden and friends and family in Scotland, and this is how we communicate, and it's completely free, and we can see each other as we talk. So what I'll do every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, unless I tell you otherwise, is I'm going to log in to Skype, and I'll just be there from 2 to 4, so if you want to talk face-to-face, we can do that. And then if there's an emergency, the best number to reach me at is my cell phone, which is there, though I encourage you to use that only in a worst case scenario if there's some panicky issue or something like that. But I also have provided my office number, and those, if you leave a voicemail there, that will get back to me through my email. So let's talk about the course in general. What's the goal of ED 552 Education in the United States? And so the idea is to have you examine current educational issues in the United States, explore education's historical and philosophical roots, and critically examine the possibilities for the future of education in your current classroom or your future classroom. Usually, as I've taught this course, there's been a mix of practicing teachers and novice teachers, and it's always nice to have a good mix. You'll hear me draw a lot on my own experiences as well. The idea behind this course is, I'll just read from the course rationale. To understand where we are and where we are going, we need to understand our past. This course illustrates historical educational developments and events in order to understand how current issues in education may have evolved and what possibilities of change may exist for the future. Philosophical and practical understandings developed by the candidate, that's you, will create a framework for reflecting on the current educational milieu while envisioning a future role in education. This is not, I know that made it sound like it's a history course. It's not a history course, even though by training I'm a historian. It's a course that has a lot of history in it, but you'll see as I've laid it out, the history gives us a foundation, and we use that foundation to talk about current events, and we try to end the course by thinking of a better future, or at least a future that's for education that's better than the present and the past that we have. Okay, so the objectives. My hope at the end of this course is that you will develop a historical understanding of issues and challenges that have confronted American education. You'll gain an awareness of competing visions of the purpose of education. You will critically review the major philosophical frameworks that have informed educational practice in the United States. That you will develop an awareness of current issues and challenges, be they political, economic, religious, etc., so that alternative perspectives on these issues and challenges may be articulated. That you'll build a collegial learning community in which you seek to extend your own learning and the learning of others. that you'll apply philosophical theory to practice through 5 hours of field experience. This is mandatory. Now, you'll gain an awareness of Connecticut's Common Core of Teaching, Common Core state standards, and so on. And finally, that you'll use effectively communication, demonstrate a mastery of the writing process, and increase in presentation and technology skills. The course readings. Okay, here are the 3 books that I'm asking you to have. Now, I mean, you take them out of the library, you borrow them from a friend, I don't care where you get them, as long as you're reading these books, the chapters that I've laid out here in the syllabus for the assigned sessions. Being an online course, you can read them in any order that you want, but I've linked them to specific topics, and there's assignments that go along with those topics, so it makes sense to read them in the order that I've prescribed. Now, one note about the Rory book. This is the 3rd edition. I've asked the bookstore to purchase for you the 3rd edition. They will probably purchase you the more expensive 4th edition. The 4th edition is a fine book to have, but as you'll see from the way we cover the content of this course, I'm fine using the 3rd edition. So what I have in the first session, if you go on the website and you go under Content and you go under Session 1, you'll see this document called Rory Book Chapter Breakdown. Okay, and that is this document right here. If you've bought the 4th edition, it's totally fine. Okay, for this first session, I'm asking everyone to read chapters 1 and 2 for the 3rd edition. If you have the 4th edition, you're going to read the intro in chapter 1. The second session, if you have the 3rd edition, you're reading chapters 3 and 4. The 4th edition, you're reading chapters 2 and 3. And finally, the 3rd session, read chapters 5 and 6. In the 3rd edition, for the 4th edition, you read chapters 4, 5, and 6. And it's really just that from the 3rd edition to the 4th edition, Rory's talked more about present issues. And you'll see in the syllabus, we really expand on those present-day issues in greater detail throughout the semester. So, while I appreciate Rory's perspective, we don't altogether need it for this session, or for this version of the course. So, again, if you've already spent money on the 4th edition, don't worry about it. That's your breakdown. Okay, and then the rest of these books, these are either book chapters or they're articles. They can all be found on Blackboard. So in the different content folders, for example, I'm asking you to read Dewey's Pedagogic Creed. You can find it right there and you download it by clicking right there. Okay, so again, you're going to see this course calendar down here, but it lines up where these readings are found, or when you should be reading each of these chapters or articles, whatever they are. Okay, but they're all online. I have them in PDF form online, so there's nothing to purchase there. Okay, course requirements. A summary of the assignments that you're going to be doing. You must lead 1 discussion through Blackboard. You must create 10 reflective blog posts. You must respond to 5 essential questions, which are posted on Blackboard. You must compose a philosophy of education. And you must conduct 5 hours of field experience. I'll explain what all of those are, but that's your grade in a nutshell. And here's how it breaks down. You get 10% for your discussion leadership, 10% for your reflective blog posts, 30% for your essential questions. There's 5 of them, so they're worth 6% each. 20% for your philosophy of education, 20% for your field experience, and 10% for your online class participation. And then this is our letter grades, A through F. And this is just Sacred Heart's breakdown of the course grades. What percentage gets you what grade. And, you know, I'll put it like this. I'm not a draconian grader. I'd like to see a progression, especially with the essential questions. I like to see you get better and better at those things. So my expectations for them increase throughout. But you're going to find I'm not really an intense grader. You know, I want to see reflection on your part. I want to see critical thinking. But I'm not out to, you know, I don't have this idea that, okay, there's going to be this many A's, this many A minuses, this many B pluses. If everyone gets an A, everyone gets an A, and that's fine by me. Okay. Now, the one thing I'll say is an incomplete. Okay, an incomplete is only given out at my discretion. Okay, and what an incomplete is you have until the 6th week of the following semester, either the fall or the spring. For you all, it would be the fall of 2014, to complete whatever you've missed from this course. Okay, and On your transcript, it'll show as an F until you make up that work. Now, after the 6th week of the fall semester, if you haven't made up that work, it becomes an F. But until then, it'll say F. You don't want to take an incomplete, though. And the reason you don't want to take an incomplete is your transcript will always show it as an F or an incomplete, excuse me, turned into whatever the grade is. So, you don't want to take an incomplete, but if you are running into some circumstance that's life altering, a family member is sick, you are sick, someone dies, these really catastrophic events. That's kind of what incompletes are reserved for. And you have to come to me early about an incomplete. Okay, if you think you're going to have to take an incomplete, you've got to come to me by the 8th session and say, Dr. Patterson, I'm worried. Can we talk about maybe me taking an incomplete? If you come to me, the last session and say, I'm taking an incomplete, I'm going to say, no, you're not. You should have come to me earlier. Now, I would discourage you from taking an incomplete anyway, okay? Because even if you make up all the work to perfection, you still won't be able to get an A because it's unfair to those people who completed the course and got an A within the parameters of our 6-week summer session semester. Okay, so don't even think about incompletes is kind of my general advice that I give to students. Okay, attendance. All students are required to view the lectures and complete the readings for all scheduled classes. Likewise, you should be ready to contribute to class discussions as led by your peers in the Blackboard discussion boards. You should also be doing all those readings, and I'm going to expect to see evidence of having completed those readings in your essential question responses. In terms of contacting me, I've already kind of said this, but come to me often. I respond to emails very quickly. I'm kind of habitually on there all the time. So, even if it's over the weekend, shoot me an email. I'll get to it as soon as I can, and I'll get back to you really quickly. I don't neglect my email, I'll put it like that. Now, the student handbook requires that all contact between you and I be through Sacred Heart's email. Every semester I get somebody who falls behind on work, and I've sent them 5 emails and they haven't responded, and then they'll respond after the 6th one and say, oh, I don't check my Sacred Heart email. Can I have an extension on this or that? And the problem is you are obligated to check your Sacred Heart email. And that goes tenfold for an online course since everything we do is online. If you prefer to use a Gmail account, I would say 2 things. 1, let me know as soon as possible. And if I can, I'll update my address book on Outlook so that your Gmail account or whatever is the one I'm sending emails to. But also, you can have your Sacred Heart email forwarded directly to any other email account. So when I put an announcement out through Blackboard, that's going to go automatically to your Sacred Heart account. There's really no way to change that. So you really need to be checking your Sacred Heart email. Okay, collegiality. Sometimes online, because you're not sitting face to face, people feel a little bit freer to be honest or blunt with their opinions. And if you're on Facebook, you know exactly what I'm talking about. People are like that on Facebook. They say things to each other that they would never say face to face, especially if they start talking about politics or something like that. And we are going to talk about controversial issues in this classroom, or in this class. So I would encourage you to, when you're commenting on somebody's posts, to comment in a way where you say to yourself, would I say this to this person if we were sitting across from each other in a classroom? And if the answer is no, rephrase it. Okay? And kind of the golden rule here, since we're all teachers or we're going to be teachers, is if you wouldn't want your students to do it in your class, you can assume I don't want you doing it in my class. That's kind of the golden rule here. Okay, so think of your own students and the student-like behavior that you would prefer and emulate that. Plagiarism. Obviously, Sacred Heart has its own policy on plagiarism, as do I. It's not to be tolerated. You're too far along in your careers to not know that plagiarism is wrong. And if you get caught doing it, obviously that's an automatic F. And it can be worse. If it's sent along to academic affairs, you can be removed from the college altogether. We prefer that to not happen. In education, just like in songwriting, there's a lot of borrowing that goes on, and that's okay. The big thing is citing your sources. I'm going to talk about how to cite your sources in a separate, much shorter lecture. Finally, disability services. This probably doesn't really apply here since we don't meet physically. But if you have a disability, you have to talk to Disability Services, the Office of Special Learning Services, excuse me, and they'll work out whatever issue you're having. Okay, let's look at the course calendar. Okay, this course is, because it's such a short period of time, it's a blend of do it on your own time whenever you have a chance and do it by these dates. And you'll see what I mean by that. But here's our calendar in a nutshell. We meet through June through July. And the first section of the course deals with foundations. It's a brief history of the U.S. We spend 3 sessions this time at the U.S., history of the U.S. Now, each session has its own topic. In each session, there is a reading. Okay, the readings are listed here. So, for example, for the second session, you're going to read Dewey's Pedagogic Creed and Rogers' Personal Thoughts. Both of those are PDFs found in the Session 2 content folder online. And then Rory, chapters 3 and 4 if you've got the 3rd edition, 2 and 3 if you've got the 4th edition. Okay, you're also going to find a lecture from me on this topic. And I've got a few discussion questions for you to answer. Okay, now the discussion boards, work will be active between these dates, right? And you'll see what I mean when we get to the Blackboard page. But if I post something, you're expected to respond to it between June 5th and June 7th. Okay, same thing with, I don't really I have a couple discussion questions for the first session, nothing major, but that's active from June 2nd to June 4th. After June 4th, I'm not going to look at it. So if you want to get the attendance points, or the credit for having participated for session 1, you've got to do it between June 2nd and June 4th. Now we're going to move very quickly through this semester. But it's kind of like an in-person course. If you were meeting in person for a summer session, you'd be meeting twice a week. So we have 2 sessions per week, or 2 discussion sessions per week, and they last for 3 days. Okay, and then June 9th is our final history section. Notice there's a gap there. June 8th is a Sunday. We have Sundays off. It's a Catholic college, right? But that's not why I did it. I just want to give you a day where you're not thinking about discussing. You can catch up on whatever work you want to do, or you can make it a day of rest. That's totally fine. But Sundays, we don't do any discussing. Okay, now on June 9th, we have our first discussion leadership, and I'll post the who is leading what discussions, but when it's your turn to lead the discussion, you're posting the prompt, and you're the moderator. You're encouraging people to participate and so on. And so the first one of those will be on June 9th to June 11th. Also, June 11th, your essential question number 1 is due to me. Okay, I'll talk about those things in just a moment. Okay, so then the next section of the course is issues today. You, your students in your classroom. So what are some micro issues you're likely to face when you are in your own classroom? And so this week, instead of doing a seminar discussion or a seminar leadership, there's a wiki activity in this discussion folder I'm asking you to contribute to between June 2nd and June 14th. June 16th to the 18th, we talk about teachers, and there are 2 wiki activities, the first year and a quality teacher. Okay, and these activities are based on the readings. Okay, these 3 readings are all found online, whereas Ravitch chapter 9 is from the Ravitch book. June 19th through the 21st, we talk about instruction, and again we have a discussion leadership, and your second essential question is due on June 21st. June 23rd to the 25th, we talk about students. We have discussion leadership. June 26th to the 28th, discussion leadership, essential question 3, and your field experience are due. And then we talk about a larger context, a national context. What does this mean for policy? So June 30th through July 2nd, we're talking about schools, and no discussion leadership, but we have the Good School Wiki activity, and your philosophies are due. July 3rd through the 5th, we talk about testing and assessment. We have a discussion leadership for Shepherd and essential question 4. July 7th through the 9th, we have no discussion leadership, but a wiki activity called A Tale of 3 States, and the essential question number 5 is due. And then finally, the last session is July 10th. There's no discussion for that. I have a 10-minute lecture. You have readings that kind of pull it all together, and then the course is over. It's going to fly by. And so that's why it's really important that you be aware of when these different assignments are due. and you have them to be no later than that date. Okay, so let me talk about that for a second. Okay, assignments are due no later than the dates described in the syllabus, but you can turn them in whenever you want. Okay, so if over the next 2 weeks you want to do all the readings and watch all my lectures, because they're all posted there on Blackboard, they're on my YouTube page, you can just knock through all of them all at once, and then you can turn in your essential questions all at once if you want to. You just cannot turn them in later than the due date in the syllabus. Okay, so that's the idea. That's the you can do it when you can do it. I had to create some kind of due dates for those assignments because obviously everybody would probably turn them in all on one day, the last day, and then it'd be impossible for me to get the reading done. So there has to be some regulation of it. But if you want to turn in everything early, if you look at this calendar and you say, you know what, essential question is due the same day as the field experience, let me get essential question 3 in when I turn in essential question 2, you can absolutely do that. There's nothing to stop you from doing that. I encourage, the earlier the better. Okay, so let me talk about the assignments themselves. The discussion leadership I will post in this first session once everybody has signed up for the course, because we still have people signing up as I record this. You will be assigned a discussion to lead. Okay, so if we have a lot of people, there's 6 slots. We can do 2 a slot or 1 a slot, depending on the number of people who sign up. You are going to lead the online discussion. So for those 3 days, you're in charge of the Blackboard discussion thread. Your discussion prompt should be based on the content of the reading that is assigned. Okay, so if you're assigned to lead the discussion from June 23rd to the 25th, it's the San Antonio and Sassafras reading, that you're creating a discussion prompt for. It's your job to start the conversation as well as maintain a productive discussion around the issues presented in the reading. So that's going to require you to check the discussion board throughout the week, posting new questions or prompts, complimenting people who have insights that you think are worth drawing attention to. And the idea is to make this engaging and collegial, and if there's a YouTube video that you think relates and is really valuable, you can link to the YouTube video. If there's a website or some kind of resource you think people should be aware of and you want them to talk about that, be creative with this. Or if you just want to work from the reading, you can do that too. If you want to switch the topic and you find someone who is willing to switch with you, let me know as soon as possible. Class participation is based on then your discussions or your participation in everybody else's discussions. Okay, so when other people are leading the discussions, or if I've put something up for you to respond to, you get points session by session. Halfway through the session, halfway through the seminar, the semester, I will post a grade of where you're at. Basically, your comments can be no longer than 200 words per post. Okay, I don't want you to dominate the discussion board. It's like the same thing as if you were in person and you were talking and talking and talking and talking. That would be frustrating for everybody. So no more than 200 words per post. But here's the thing. You have to do a minimum of 3 comments per session. Okay, 1 original thought of your own and 2 responses to classmates. Okay, so a minimum of 3 comments per session. Okay, reflective blog posts. There are 12 sessions. For 10 of them, you have to do a reflective blog post. And a blog post is a brief personal reaction to the topic for that particular week. Now, this first session, you'll see in my first lecture, my first content lecture, I'm asking you to actually respond to a specific prompt, introducing yourself to the class. But for the other 9, it's up to you what you want to say. It doesn't have to respond to anybody else in the class. It can be very much a memory you have from school or personal experience, personal reaction. I mean, I'm not asking you to analyze readings. I'm asking you to react in a personal way to the content of that week's session. Okay, I'm going to talk more about the essential questions in a separate lecture. But in a nutshell, there's posts. They're already posted. There's 5 of them. They're posted in the session that they align with, and you're responding in no more than 500 words, and you're emailing me your response. The prompt is related to the readings of the session in which you find it in. Okay, so for example, if we go up to essential question number 4, you'll see is based on schools and testing and assessment. So I've posted a question that I'm asking you to respond with evidence from these articles or using your knowledge from those articles. Okay, and like I said earlier, if you want to do all these at once and just turn them in, you can. The idea is for you to develop and support an argument. You're going to see these questions are not difficult questions. The challenge is in presenting an intelligent, coherent, concisive, but well-supported response to the question itself. They're questions where there isn't a specific right answer or a specific wrong answer, but more you're graded on how you respond. And I'm going to show you on a separate lecture the rubric I'm using so you know what the expectation is. Your philosophy of education, which again can be turned in at any time but no later than July 2nd, is a personal perspective on education. Now, if you go up to sessions 2 and 3, you have readings from Dewey, Rogers, Boyer, Baines, and Foster. Those are all examples of philosophies of education. And so, what you're doing is you're thinking about the state of education today and thinking about your role as an educator therein and developing a position on it. Okay, what's important to you? What of these elements that are listed here or others are most relevant in terms of your formulating of an understanding of education today? And this assignment is incredibly open-ended. Beyond, it should be between 4 to 6 pages, double-spaced, and if you're linking your ideas to ideas from course readings, that has to be done in APA format, which again is something I'm going to talk about in a separate post. Okay, but it's a reflection piece, and so I don't have a specific format for it. It's very subjective on your part. Finally, the field experience. Now, the field experience is required of teachers students who are looking for certification. Okay, and this is a required, if you don't complete this, you cannot pass the course. Okay, and this is due June 28th. Keep that in mind, because it requires you to go out and observe. Okay, 5 hours. You can't see me right now, but I'm doing air quotes over 5 hours. I need you to go to one PTA meeting, and I need you to go to one Board of Education meeting. I need you to observe those meetings, and I need you to talk to people at those meetings. And what you're thinking about is how you can gain an awareness of the use of community resources in the educational process. I put a quote around 5 hours because as far as I'm concerned, if you've been to one of these meetings, one of each, and it's only ended up being 4 hours, I'm not going to double check it, and you can go ahead and call that 5. The key is having gone to one PTA and one Board of Ed meeting and have talked to people at both of those meetings. Using your observations in those informal interviews, write a 2 to 3 page reflection paper and an oral presentation. Now, we're online. Oral presentation, what does that mean? You'll see there's a discussion thread specifically asking you to reflect or to present one insight from each meeting. That's what I mean by oral presentation. It's nothing formal, but it does have to be drawn out from your experiences. Okay, now this must be completed, and you must complete the required field experience forms. They're right here. Okay, it's two pages. Okay, you're going to go to one. You do one of each. Okay, so you go to your Board of Ed meeting, and you bring this you bring this with you. You fill it out. What's your name? What's the semester? Was this an urban, suburban, or rural placement? Here's the key. You have to find somebody who's willing to sign off and say, yes, they were there. Most of the field experiences at Sacred Heart occur in a classroom. This one doesn't. So whoever it is who's going to vouch for you that you were there has to put their name and their contact information. They also fill out this rubric for you. Now, this is the same rubric that is used in all field experiences at Sacred Heart. So a lot of this stuff is NA. Adherence to school policies while you're at a Board of Ed meeting. They can put NA. Professional appearance they can respond to. student needs and interests, well, that's going to be an NA. But they also sign and date this document. So you need two of these. Okay, you're one for the Board of Ed meeting and one for the PTA meeting. And this is something you are going to bring to my office. You're going to mail to my office, or if you're on campus, you're going to drop off at my office. And I will post my address so you have that. Okay, so those are the requirements of the course. The rest of this is kind of boilerplate, the domains that this course covers, and we don't need to go through that. Okay, so that's the syllabus. So let me show you the course itself online. Oh yes, one other thing. So for those of you who are already certified, you're doing the same assignment but in reverse. Instead of observing these places, these meetings, I want you to, as an educator, reflect on how the PTA and the Board of Education impacts your school and your classroom. So kind of the same assignment but from a different perspective. You are also writing a 2 to 3 page reflection. This explanation is here in the first folder. Okay, so here's our course. It's on Blackboard. You log into Blackboard, you go to this particular course. When I make announcements, that will be the first thing you see. I haven't made any announcements yet. You can find a copy of the syllabus here. If I update the syllabus, you'll find the updated version here. Now these are the 2 pages you're going to be most concerned with. Really the content page. For each session, when you go in here, what you'll find are the lecture. That's my content lecture. That's a link to the YouTube page, as well as the PowerPoint that coincides with it. Here's your link to the blog post. Okay, so that's where you can go to make your blog post for week 1, and a link to the discussion board. Okay, so when you click on that, it brings you over here, and you'll see there's our introduction, and I've got a couple posts. Now these posts relate to the lecture, so don't just go fill them out. Watch the lecture, then go to the discussion board. Now for example, week 3, okay, so if we go to week 3, there's a lot in week 1, obviously, because I'm throwing a lot at you for week 1 or session 1. But for session 3, okay, you have your 2 readings, you have the link to the blog post, you have the link to the discussion board, you have essential question number 1's prompt, you have my video and my PowerPoint. So when you go here, okay, there's the seminar leadership. Okay, and that's where whoever is our seminar leader is going to post their initial thread. Okay, they will just hit reply and they will have a prompt and you will respond to that prompt. Okay, that's where the discussions take place. Okay, so all of our work is found in these content folders. I also have created a test session. So if you're new to Blackboard or new to these types of activities, for example, the wiki, you can then edit wiki content. That's how it works. This is a test wiki, so just mess around with it. The same thing with the discussion board. If you're unfamiliar with how to post on Blackboard, this is where you can just mess with these features. Technical issues can be solved using help or going to the factory, which is Sacred Heart's IT group. I'm not really good with the technical stuff, so if you have technical issues, they are the people to go with. Now, in the discussions, this is very important. You see this first forum? Create questions, course questions and concerns. If you have a question or a concern, create a thread and ask that question. Okay? And I will respond to it here. But the reason I want all of this on one thread is because you may have similar questions or concerns as someone else in the class. And maybe that question and concern has already been answered. So you can go here and find an answer to that question as opposed to, asking me again and again and again. Maybe the answer's already there and we can cut out the middleman. Okay, so there's a discussion board for each session. At one point, I'm going to ask you to just talk about your philosophy, where it's at. And lastly, field experiences. Okay? You might not know where Board of Ed meetings are taking place. Okay? You can just post a thread here and you can look here to see where your classmates are going. You can meet up and go to the same Board of Ed meeting or the same PTA meeting. Okay? And I think that just about covers the entirety of the course. If you have questions, rather than emailing me, again, come to this discussion board, click right there, post your question there. Okay. I'll be posting one other short lecture and of course our first content lecture for this course. But otherwise I think we're pretty much set and ready to go. So I'm wishing you a good semester. Everybody's got a little anxiety with online courses when it first begins, but I think once we get into the swing of things, you're going to see it's not that difficult.